Hey, I'm Michael, and this is Michael in the Middle. It's an intergenerational relational podcast for people who are interested in better human interaction. I'm glad you're here. All right. I've been looking forward to this one. This is episode 16 of Michael in the Middle, and that is my dashingly good-looking younger brother over there on the other side of the screen if you're watching. If you're just listening on the audio, just imagine one of the most intelligent looking, fit men, 59 years of age or older. And that's what you'd have over there. He's Jeffrey Thomas Johnson, my younger brother. He's also Dr. Jeffrey T. Johnson, who serves as South Texas District Superintendent for the Church of the Nazarene down through the Southland of Texas. It really extends. How many square miles do you cover on your district? I mean, it's like a massive amount of territory, isn't it?
It'd be like a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
If anybody knows anything about the state of Texas, if you basically went to Waco and drew a line across the state, it'd be there and everything below, all the way down to the border.
Yeah. You've been in Texas since 2000. Am I right about that?
January of 2001.
2001. Wow. That's just. I mean, that's well nigh 22 years in a place that, we've been guilty of, the whole horns down thing as Oklahoma fans, and you've been in Texas longer than you've been anywhere else, I think.
Quite a bit longer. And I love being in Texas now. I love being from Oklahoma. Love living in Texas. There's a lot more to the state than the burnt orange part of it.
That's great. We'll get to talking about that a little bit more, but for those of you who are listening and watching and don't really know a lot about our story, my brother and I were born to Talmadge and Genell Johnson. I was born in February of 1960, and Jeffrey was born in October of 1963, just a few weeks before, sadly, the assassination of JFK. I was watching the news, and I guess it's been, it was what would this have been? The 59th anniversary of that awful tragedy. And I look back at those pictures, and I think about what felt like a simpler life back then in Elk City, Oklahoma, as a 3.5-year-old boy when you were born. And I remember a little bit about Route 66 and being aware of certain aspects of the news and the political spectrum. But man, our whole life seemed like it was the church more than anything else. But somehow, for you and me, in different ways, the church has been interwoven into every aspect of our lives, whether it's current events or just trying to make a difference in people's lives through the auspices of the church. And I would say we have an amazing heritage. You and I we were talking a little bit earlier, even before we hit the record button, about the fact that today, 1 year ago today, we were just at the time of this taping, we were just hours away from learning that our mother, Genell, had suffered sudden cardiac arrest and was taken from us. And it's been an interesting year. I want to talk a little bit about her in a moment, but before we get to all of that, Jeffrey, I would love for you to talk a little bit about your own family. I've got a couple of pictures here that will harken back to those early days in the 60s. I mean, who couldn't love that face? It's a great smile, That's not a real bow tie. I know that's a clip-on because I think I helped put that on you a time or two. But do you ever wear bow ties anymore?
I do not. I do not have any. I don't have any from the Dr. Stephen Hoskins collection. That you see that picture and how I got from there to here is kind of astounding. How that cute little face got to this. How that cute little nose got to what one person recently referred to as an ancient nose. It's,
Oh my word!
Mysterious.
Yeah, it's isn't it funny how some people feel so at liberty to say things out loud?
Yeah, I receive it. It's okay.
Yeah, prominent. I think I mean, my nose factors in a big way in the overall context of my face, I guess, as well. Hey, you are married to the former Julie Pelton, and you have two beautiful daughters, and they married great guys, and I know you love your daughters and your sons-in-law, but you really love those grandkids, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. We three amazing.
This is I'm showing a picture right now of a recent trip that you were able to take with Preston and Janae Kaiser.
Yeah, through the blessing of a good friend, got to go out and stay at their place out in the San Diego area, and that's our daughter Janae and her husband Preston, and then Ava is about to turn 11 in December, and Indy is 6.
And they live down there in Houston, nearby.
They live about 15 minutes from us, and
that's awesome.
Preston is a professional videographer and super talented at that, and Janae works in HR for Chevron.
Awesome.
And does well.
Next, showing your younger daughter Jana here with her husband Zach. This stole this from Jana's Instagram, but that's back in August, and they're a smashing couple, and they that would be your phone.
That'd be my phone. I'll decline it there.
It's a familiar tune. This is you and Julie with Zach and Jana's little boy Wyatt. He's something else, isn't he?
He is. He's a big boy. He'll be 4 in January.
Yeah.
And they live in East Kentucky, where Zach's heritage is, in Ashland, the tri-state area, West Virginia, Ohio, Kentucky. And I'm looking forward to seeing them actually later today.
That's terrific. Jeffrey, you and I grew up in a setting where there was almost no context in which the church or the work of the church was not involved. I mean, you and I played ball growing up, and we were avid sports fans ourselves. We're a devastating combo in terms of music trivia. I think we can hold our own with about anybody. We got to watch a little TV every now and then when we early on we did not have TV, and I think I mentioned this in one of my other episodes that we didn't have a TV in our house until I was 12, which would made you about 9. And this is a picture with our granddad Johnson. Again, if you're not watching, it's kind of hard to describe it, but W.T. Johnson, the original Walker Talmadge Johnson, was quite a cat. He snappy dresser at all times, and back in that day, our church was maybe a little strict on certain things, and some of us didn't have TVs until later on. But Granddad Johnson didn't mind when we would come over to 7313 South Douglas there on the south side of Oklahoma City, and we'd go to 7-Eleven. If we were going to spend a Friday night there, we'd go to 7-Eleven and rent 19-inch black and white TV and take it back to the house. And I remember one thing in particular about renting a TV. I remember seeing Pete Maravich play basketball on one of those rented 7-Eleven TVs. In I guess it would have been either late 60s or early 70s. I'm the chronology of all of that is a little fuzzy in my mind, but Granddad Johnson liked Hawaii 5-0 and westerns, and he had pet names for those, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he called Hawaii 5005.
Hawaii 05.
I got and he mostly just listened to the volume up really loud where he could hear the gunshots.
Yeah.
Trying to explain that whole dynamic with television in our youth is lost on most people.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, especially given what a big part of our life it became. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
I think our one positive thing maybe about it was our appreciation for storytelling came from listening to a lot of records, even movies that were put on record, or and a certain comedian that you're not supposed to talk about anymore, his records were influenced.
Yeah. You
great
know,
story about his youth.
I have a couple of dozen of those records that you and I used to listen to when we were kids, like Quick Draw McGraw and Johnny Appleseed and Bullwhip Griffin and The Incredible Journey. I mean, do you remember listening to The Incredible Journey and being so concerned about those animals making it back safely?
Yeah, I remember it well, and only people over 60 probably have any idea what we're talking about.
Well, you know, I think that's one of the important things that this podcast brings to the sphere of knowledge. I mean, these are important things that people who don't know what we're talking about, they should, you know, they should get on their device here and Google some of these things. They'd learn something. I mean, that was culture, and I mean, people are really missing out.
Well, I think there is an appreciation for storytelling from that era that's maybe lost a little bit now because everything is so instantaneous.
Yeah.
And everybody now thinks they're an author and publisher and artist.
Or podcaster, you know.
I wouldn't go in there.
So tell the folks what it is that you do now, and we're going to work our way toward a couple of things that I really wanted to talk to you about. But you in college were originally studying, preparing potentially go to law school, and you ended up, you know, following the footsteps of our father and grandfathers and a great grandfather. What was going on there? How just give folks a little bit of a flavor of what you were thinking about what you would do, and then all of a sudden, you know what, I need to do this.
Yeah, I remember being in an 8th grade civics class at Whitten Junior High School in Jackson, Mississippi. Mr. Green, civics and history teacher, also taught driver's ed.
Yeah.
And deciding in class one day, clearly, yeah, I want to be a lawyer. That's what I do. And as time progressed, I thought, yeah, I'll go to school, study history, pre-law, maybe even teach and coach a little bit as I'm, headed into law practice. That's my plan all along. And I think, most people that knew us growing up would have expected you to be the one who would become a minister. You were the one that was more ready to get up and speak in front of a group and handle that well. I was the one with more of a temper that at times concerned our parents and others. Um, and it was something I
Oh,
wrestled with in my own journey,
yeah.
late teens and heading into college, about what it really meant to be fully obedient, to follow Christ in my life. And one of the things that I struggled to surrender was I felt like if I did fully surrender, fully submit to the Lord, that it might mean that I might go into ministry, and that wasn't what I was wanting to choose. But when that all crystallized, um, I got some great encouragement from other mentors, in particular, pastor in those days, Greg Rickey, about if you say yes and that's what God wants for you, he'll keep confirming that in your life. And so that's what happened. My young lady that I started dating right about the time that I was wrestling with all of that, uh, did not want to marry a minister, having grown up in a pastor's home and knowing a lot of what that involved. But fortunately, she stayed with me through a lot. Um, yeah, I've been in ministry. Good experience at Trevecca, um, Nazarene Theological Seminary. Went into ministry. I served an associate at 3 churches, pastored 3 churches, and then about 13 years ago, I was elected into this role after having pastored in Houston for over 12 years. So, been surrounded by a lot of good people. Every church I've served in, and in this role, God sent people, by my side to be co-workers, encouragers, friends, supporters, and I've never regretted being obedient to following that call, even when it's challenging at times.
So, I'm going to show this picture here. This is down in Mississippi somewhere. I can't quite tell the location, but
I was
we were in.
clearly too cool for school right there. I don't know what was going on. If I
Yeah.
believed that I was supposed to be somewhere else at the moment, but anyway, the hairspray was working.
You yeah, you had a full head of hair. I did too, and now we don't. And
You know,
you've just been more honest about the lack of hair. I still can't bring myself to shave it down all the way, but maybe someday. Uh, Mississippi was a big part of our lives, man. And I again, showing this picture for those who are watching on YouTube, you can see the dynamic kind of there of the family. My dad um, was a very young district superintendent. He was only 38 when we moved down there in 1975 for him to serve in that role, and 43 when they moved to Mississippi, from Mississippi to Tennessee. Um, Mother really fell in love with the people of Mississippi, and really our whole family, I think, still feels very fondly about those times. But I'm thinking about, I'm guessing this is roughly probably the spring of 1980 that I'm looking at this here, and you. I was already established at Trevecca and was dating Sarah and engaged and making plans and all that. You had to uproot right before your senior year in high school, the way the timing of all of that fell, and that was a little bit of a challenging time for you, wasn't it?
definitely. Mother and Daddy actually moved sometime early that spring up to Tennessee. I stayed back with the family in Mississippi and finished out my junior year. I'd been really with the same core group of friends and students, for 5 years. Wanted to stay and finish my senior year, but the folks felt like I should live with them. And pretty, yeah, honestly, pretty angry, pretty bitter for 2 or 3 months when we moved to Tennessee in 1980. But that's another story. The Lord did a lot of good things through a lot of people.
Yeah.
Turn that around.
Sounds like a dog there in the neighborhood's a little upset about something too.
Definitely. It's hearing a dog bark like that. It just reminds me of one of my favorite comedians, Brian Regan. It's like, what is going on? It's just like a person just standing over there going, hey, 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 hey.
That's hilarious. Brian Regan's such a good comedian. But yeah, just in the incessant, and then finally when somebody answers, I go, "How's it going?"
Yeah, nothing there. Just want to see if you're paying attention.
Yeah, yeah. So you just to fast forward, these events that happen in our lives that are very difficult and even create a bit of anger. I remember that well. I mean, I felt badly for you. I was having the time of my life at Trevecca. I was already well adjusted, and I've thought a lot of times, what could I have done more than I did to try to, make it better for you. But that's one of those situations where I can look back on it now and think, I don't know what else I could have done. One of the interesting things is that you made friends with a few people through what Nazarenes used to call impact teams. I think there's still a couple of districts that do that, but Greg and Gerald and Ricky and then several people that are still friends of yours and friends of mine to this day. That association with that group kind of helped soften it just a little bit because it at least introduced you to some people. But I love to tell folks that when I'm talking with my brother, I'm talking with a man who scored through the roof on his ACT and has 3 degrees and is one of the most learned people I know. But I mean, you're one of the rarities. You have all these degrees and no high school diploma.
Yeah, that's a crazy story. I mean, it certainly wasn't any kind of plan. It's just,
Sure.
I mean, we're talking 1980, and there weren't all these programs where you get dual credit while you're in high school or
Yeah.
anything like that. And basically, you are a person that's always trying to get in the middle of helping people out. And when you see them struggle, and there wasn't much you could do. But in this case, you were a student admissions counselor and kind of saw my situation where I was driving all the way across Nashville to try to go to class with some people I'd met, but only had one class out of 6 with anybody I knew, and hated every day of it. Much bigger high school than I'd gone to. And I mean, I was a good athlete and I was in band, but I wasn't a great superstar at anything where you're going to come into a big school as a senior and
Yeah.
spot with anything. So, yeah, basically you knew about the early admission program, and that's, people don't necessarily want to hear about that, but yeah, I had the qualifications for that. And it worked out. You and I presented that plan to the folks and they accepted it. And I just dropped out of high school in late October of 1980.
Yeah. And then you started at Trevecca in January of 81. I remember that, just a little bit. It actually, the last 2 or 3 months of 1980, there wasn't a whole lot for you to do except enjoy life, right?
Yeah, one quick funny story about that, and people that know our dad will appreciate this. But so I had stopped going to high school, and it kind of just turned into staying up late, either going over to Trevecca or hanging out with friends and sleeping till noon and that sort of thing. At that time, our dad's office was above the garage at that house out on Otter Creek, South Nashville. And after a couple of weeks of what I was doing there, he came through the house one day. It's about 12:30, and I just got out of bed. And he just stopped, and he looked at me and said, "This program that you're on is not working for me." And I just looked at him and he looked at me and he pointed at me and said, "You need to get a job." And he made a couple of calls, and I ended up getting a job at Kane Sloan Department Store in Green Hills, and worked there, through the holiday season until started going to Tribeca. And yeah, I lived at home the first couple of quarters of '81, and then moved on campus with the people that I would have
Sure.
graduated with. And
Yeah.
moved on.
You worked at Arby's for a time. Is that correct?
3 hours. Yeah, I had a lot of pride. Not that I still don't, but the double knit uniform and that hat you had to wear, I just one evening was all I could do.
That just cracks me up. I mean, I didn't have that down in my notes to bring up, but
I'm sure people are riveted by all of this right now. Yeah.
oh yeah. Well, I mean, who knows what causes people to stay tuned into a podcast?
Yeah.
I mean, they are just conversations, and you're right. Maybe this is just too inside for us. But Jeffrey, you have been all the way along. I mean, you've been somebody that I was just, when you were younger and got a little bit sick, and there were some concerns about what you're going to be dealing with. I mean, you've battled back through a lot of different challenges over the years, and I guess I would say that our mother was kind of in the big middle of all of that with you through a lot of those kinds of situations.
A constant presence. I had really bad allergies and had chronic asthma. And I don't know how many trips to the ER, were required to get me breathing well again. His mother was always right there. And had a blood disease when I was in 4th grade that eventually had to take my spleen in order to cure that. They initially thought it was possibly leukemia. I'm able to remember that being in the pediatrician's office. I had bruises all over my body that this condition was causing. And the Dr. Garina, our pediatrician there in Oklahoma City, and mother was in the office with me, and he actually said the words to her, which may not have been wise at the moment, that he feared that it was leukemia.
Yeah.
And I wasn't processing all of that. And I remember mother going to the phone that was on the wall in that office there, and calling the church, and our dad was in a pastor's gathering of some kind, and somebody went and got him and took the call, and they had a time of prayer among those pastors for me right there. It'd be later on that we discover there wasn't leukemia and all the trauma that went with that. But yeah, mother was always right there. She's just a fierce protector of her boys and of anybody that was our friend.
Yeah.
And I've had friends over the years comment about our family's loyalty, and I would say that mother was at the center of that.
Yeah. I don't think there's any doubt.
If she decided that you were a friend of hers or a friend of ours, that was going to stick and stay, and she'd be right there with you, cry with you, pray with you, battle with you, be mad with you.
Yeah.
That's one thing about our mother was she was typically pretty easy to read about what she was thinking about things and even about people.
Yeah.
But fiercely loyal and protective and caring without pampering us to the point of, we were overprotected. I mean, we all, we both had our bumps and bruises and issues and accidents and all those kind of things and adventures.
I think some of that stems from, um, where she came from, a lot of the things that she went through, and maybe at times wondering a little bit about her own support system and that sort of thing. I mean, that's my amateur psychology at work there. I think she determined in her heart that her family was going to, aside from her relationship with the Lord, that was going to be where she invested virtually all of her emotional capital, and I wrote something uh, the other day, and just um, on this past Sunday when Austin and Rebecca had little Homer Crawford Johnson's up at the front of the church, and an act of dedication and presenting him, as has been tradition for generations, to the Lord, and praying that God would bless his life and all of that. And that I mean, this about your daughters and my sons, and then the people they married, and then the children that they have produced. I mean, it's like with each successive generation, it seemed like mother's heart grew even more, and in terms of wanting to do for them and to be for them what they needed. And um, I mean, I wish everybody in the world had people in their lives who loved them like our mother loved us, and her family. Um, you we took a trip with the folks in 2019, and this is a picture of you and Julie and Sarah and me with our folks uh, somewhere high above Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. Um, I mean, that whole time we were on that trip, I kept thinking about Captain Steubing in the Love Boat, and, and if we're going to run into, anybody that we might have seen on TV, it was kind of a surreal experience. But um, all kidding aside, this was something that Mother wanted to do. She wanted to do a trip in conjunction with the 60th anniversary of their wedding with her two sons and daughters-in-law, and you know, um, Mother was somebody that served really well and tried to do things for other people, but sometimes she could find herself being assertive about things that she was interested in doing. And I don't think that trip would have happened if she hadn't just said, "Talmage, I want to do this."
Yeah, it was a great.
And it was a great
There were,
experience.
there were lots of moments on that trip when you could see the joy
Yeah.
that she was experiencing, just hanging out with us, watching you and me compete in a music trivia contest in the piano bar,
Yeah.
or those kind of things. And yeah, she loved it. One story that comes to my mind, that kind of speaks to who our mom was, in addition to thinking her sons were more amazing than we are.
For
We'll over
sure.
the top on that, but and I think that's what you'd want in a parent, more so than somebody who's
Yeah.
constantly making you feel inferior. But and I don't have anything out here. Hopefully, I won't tear up. But um, when uh, when she passed away, the responses of people to that, there are many stories that are pretty overwhelming, and it speaks to a little bit the title of your podcast, in the middle, of how she got in the middle of people's hearts. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't mean in the middle of their business in a negative way, but in the middle of
Right.
their lives in a positive way.
Yeah.
And so um, when the event happened that night a year ago, we were here at our house in Cypress, Texas, and our granddaughters, Ava and Indy, were with us. And, I got the phone calls from Daddy, from you. And then when it was real that she was gone, it was very emotional. And when we informed Janae and Jana, they were a mess. They loved their Mimi so much. And the girls, the great granddaughters were very emotional. But it was after a while that evening when I got a text from Preston, son-in-law Preston, who I've known since he was in the 7th grade. And we've had quite a journey in life together. And he had a lot of challenges, growing up in his life. And his text was pretty straightforward and simple. Preston's not flowery with words. And he just said, "I'm sorry, PJ. Mimi was my friend." And that just says a lot, to say he didn't talk about her as like this grandmotherly figure, but as this 85-year-old woman, as his friend.
Yeah.
Who loved and was interested in him and his life, and made that so clear. And I think you had a picture of our mom when she was a homecoming queen at Bethany Nazarene College. What is that, 1958?
No, that's
Yeah.
going to be 56 or 7, because they graduated in 1958. So
yeah, you see how beautiful she was, and why a lot of young men, including our dad, were attracted to her. But Preston took that picture and made T-shirts with that picture on.
yeah.
And he still wears it once in a while, and Ava has one, and that's just her beautiful smile there, and that memory of the way she got involved in people's lives, got in the middle of their hearts, and I think that's where we want to live. And I think that's what you're trying to do with all of this in the middle stuff. It's some people here in the middle, and they think their minds immediately go to like hot issues and politics and that kind of stuff. And I mean, there's certainly an element of that, but I think what we're called to do, and certainly what the incarnation of God becoming flesh in Christ is, to get in the middle of people's lives, and ultimately, hopefully, get in the middle of our hearts, and have that impact us by the way they love us unconditionally, and no matter what the circumstances are, no matter what choices are made, that presence and that love and that investment is constant, and that's what people are looking for today, and I think the need is as great as it's ever been for those of us that say we know what good is, because we've seen it and experienced it in Christ, that we try to live in such a way that we can get in the middle of their hearts and lives, in a powerful, positive, unconditional love kind of way. We've had a lot of people do it for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Forefront of that with our dad.
My friend Matt Litton, who was on with me last week in episode 15, said a lot of times people aren't so much looking for answers as they are presence. And that line's really been sticking with me, because I think what the response there was to Mother's passing, and the number of people who showed up at the service, and people who've talked about watching her service online, or people that would just every now and then. Heard a story the other day about a lady who helped her with her nails. Mother didn't have a lot of expensive adornments, but she never left the house without looking really sharp, really well put together. And our friend Jenny said the other day that being at her service she just said, my life is different because of what I experienced there. And I am emotional thinking about it because it wasn't just the service that was amazing. It was that the service reflected the depth of who Genell was. And she wasn't always the one up on the platform, although she did a good job when she was. Beautiful singing voice, incredibly gifted on the piano. She could even do a good job speaking, although she wasn't nearly as confident as she probably should have been, because she did a great job with that. But Genell's presence in people's lives was the thing that validated all of the other things that she said were important to her, including her relationship with the Lord. Got a picture up here from a surprise birthday party that Sarah helped plan with some of Mother and Daddy's friends. This, for those of you who can see it, is a picture from October 5th, 2021. And it really was a surprise for her. And I think one of the things that, that night reminded me of, and a lot of other times since, is that I don't think our mom really knew how highly regarded she was by a lot of people. I don't know that she thought of herself as any kind of star or something significant in the lives of a lot of people. And I tell you one thing that I'm trying to do, and thank you for your words about what I'm trying to even do with this podcast, but I'm trying to tell people that there will be plenty of opportunities for people to be humbled by the things that other people say to them. But I'm trying to find as many ways as I can to speak life and encouragement into people where I can, and to affirm them as significant in the eyes of God, and in the grand scheme of things. Um, uh, I, I know you do that a lot in the work that you do, trying to encourage pastors and others who are working hard in often very difficult situations. And I think we don't have time to talk about the future of the church necessarily, but I really do believe that our churches need to be great dispensers of joy and hope. I think those are the kinds of things that could win the day at bringing people back to church, and being connected to a group of people. What are some things, as we kind of maybe turn the page? I mean, we're all a product of our environment and our shared experiences, and certainly our parents played huge roles in that. But now that you're where you are, I mean, I think about this a lot. In my early 60s, how long do I have left in the work that I'm going to do? What is it that I still need to do to fulfill my calling and my role? But what are some things that you're thinking about that are forward looking, even some things maybe that you're working on, or just personal hopes and dreams that you have?
Yeah, I mean, there's many, and I need to dig deeper, in my own life, um, and in terms of my walk with the Lord. And you talk about presence, um, and how important that is. We were talking about our mother's presence in people's lives, and that's really that's so important, and helping others to see that our presence, in people's lives, in the community, in the name of Christ, is what's crucial. Yeah, we need to speak the truth, but that's always got to be spoken in love. And the John chapter 1 says that the Word became flesh, and the Word was full of grace and truth. That's 100% of both.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that that you kind of have to have one or the other. And no, it's both. And I want to be agents of that. I want to be an agent of hope, and get anybody that I can have influence on to be the same. You're so right. That's what we need to be communicating. A lot of people think that if you major on hope and joy and grace, that somehow you're going to compromise the truth. And I say no. That's not true.
Yeah.
That does not have to be. We can hold firm to what we know is right and from Scripture and the confirmation of the Holy Spirit, but we can do it with the open arms, as my good friend Rick Harvey likes to say, to live your life with open arms.
Yeah.
For people, that's certainly the picture of God that we get in Jesus, and want to be that. We made references to stories and things like that, and one of my favorite movies is not a strong Christian movie. It's called Tombstone, and there's a lot in that. There's a lot of sinning in that movie, by the way.
Yeah.
But there is a scene at the end of that. If anybody knows this movie at all, and maybe it's just a certain percentage of guys that like that, but Doc Holliday, who's portrayed as the best friend of Wyatt Earp, and they're both very fallen men, but Doc Holliday's dying from tuberculosis and a life of alcohol abuse, and he's in what they called a sanitarium back in those days.
Right.
But he's in hospice care.
Sure.
And his last days, and Wyatt Earp's visiting him every day, and Holliday knows that he's near the end of his life, and he's telling Wyatt Earp he needs to get on with his life, and stop coming to see him, to go on and embrace life. But in a moment of real vulnerability, he says to Wyatt Earp, "In all my life, you're the only person that ever gave me hope." And if that could be said about any of us, that we're somebody that gives other people hope, I'd take that.
Pretty good way to go.
I texted our dad today, knowing the emotions that he's going through based on what happened a year ago, and just short and quick, that I love you, and I know you got a lot of memories today, and I hope they bring warmth. And I said to him, our hope is sure and certain.
Yes. So true. So true. We romanticize things that happen sometimes, maybe as a coping mechanism, but my 100-year-old mother-in-law lives here in our house with us, and among other, in addition to Gaither videos and a half dozen preachers that she really enjoys, she really likes Wheel of Fortune. And I made a little bit of a joke at Mother's service when we welcomed everybody, that I don't think there was any correlation to the fact that she died watching Wheel of Fortune. I don't know that it's a fatal exercise, but that was kind of a nightly ritual for Mother and Daddy. And Mother was big at speaking to the TV. Whatever the show was or the movie she was watching, she would kind of speak out, and especially on those game shows, and especially Wheel of Fortune. And when she went quiet and she wasn't saying anything, about the clues that were going on, she wasn't making any guesses. Daddy looked over at her and said, "Genell, are you okay?" She didn't say anything. She just lifted her right arm and then slumped over to her left, and she was gone. And I think it's okay for us to believe that in that moment she was reaching up and taking the hand of the one who had given her hope literally all her life when her mom died, when she was 14 and Aunt Faye was only 3. And when she got sick herself, when you were sick, when anything, that was difficult was facing her, I don't think she ever gave up hope one time that things were going to be okay. And, I want us to continue her legacy of strong presence, being in the middle of people's lives and getting in the middle of people's hearts. I love that. I love that whole thing. And I thank you for the tombstone reference. That's beautiful. I might just have to watch it just so I can get to the end.
Yeah. Well, you're doing good, brother. Keep trying.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Keep trying. And Mother never gave up hope, but her hope was challenged at times.
Oh yeah,
and that happens to all of us.
it does.
So we gotta stay present with the Lord and stay present with each other and put hope in the middle.
I'm super proud of you, Jeffrey. Grateful for you, and thanks for the example that you are to so many. And thanks for humoring me by coming on here and for being a part of this. And I pray that it'll be a blessing to someone. Thanks for being here, friends. We'll see you next time. Love you too.